Did I do it?
It looks like we got it, right?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks again for having me this evening. I'm very much looking forward to spending time with all of you tonight. I want to thank Dr. Bloomquist, who's here. She's my dissertation advisor, Dr. Candace Bloomquist, who is currently grading my drafts of chapters 1, 2, and 3 of my dissertation. So if you want to drop any nice things about me into the chat and send them to her, I'm just saying, that'd be okay with me. So I'm really excited about getting a chance to work with her. And we have got about a year to go. She's going to help me get across the finish line with my dissertation, which is on this really important topic, a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that is the experiences of women working in higher education. My dissertation will be focused on my home state here in Indiana, where I have spent my entire career. And so I'm just very excited about the opportunity to kind of be here tonight and share with all of you what I've been learning so far. I do want to just kind of acknowledge as well a really cool kind of collision of worlds that's happening here. So I have my Creighton community. Lots of you are on the call tonight. I see lots of familiar faces and names, and so want to acknowledge that and say thank you so much for being here. I've been blown away by how meaningful the experience has been for me at Creighton, and that's thanks to all of you. And I see Jeff Miller on here too, who's one of my very favorite professors ever, who I've in my entire educational background. So thanks to Jeff for being here. And I want to acknowledge all of my colleagues and friends from Franklin College, who are also here. I serve as the Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Franklin College, located here in Franklin, Indiana. Lots of them are on the call tonight as well, which is awesome. And as I was sort of thinking about this, colliding of worlds in the very best of ways, I thought, how cool, because we're going to be talking about the experiences of women working in higher education. And I have this group sort of firmly placed at Creighton and this other group placed at Franklin, two very different institutions, but both communities working really hard every day for our students. And so thinking about some of these issues together is really a cool opportunity. So thanks to everybody and thanks for having me. So let's see if I can get this to advance. This is just kind of roughly the agenda for tonight, if you will. So just a little bit about my background. I do want you to kind of understand where I've been coming from and sort of why I care so much about this topic. I do think that is important, and then why I'm interested in studying the research that I'm studying and what it is telling us. So I've been in my program now at Creighton in the EDD program for about 3 years. And so I don't want to say that I'm an expert on this topic by any means, not yet, but I've kind of, I've been around the research. I know my way around at this point. So I'm getting there to really kind of understand this phenomenon of women working in this higher education space. And what has been so cool for me is that I've been working in higher ed for 20 years. And over all of those years, I've witnessed firsthand a lot of inequities. And of course, as a woman, I've noticed lots and lots of issues really specific to women. And now that I'm in my doctoral program, I'm reading and learning about these issues. And it's all of a sudden for me, like, oh my gosh, there's a name for that, like that thing that I've been witnessing, that I've seen happen to women over the years. As it turns out, there are researchers who've been studying that topic, and there's actually a name for it. And there are people who are trying to solve that issue. And so I do feel some sense of obligation or responsibility to share that, because I do feel like I'm firmly planted in two worlds, both as a practitioner and then now, of course, as a scholar. So we'll talk a little bit about what I have been finding, and then we'll talk at the end about our call to action. So maybe reflecting a little bit about some of these themes and these topics together, and then sharing maybe what we can do to improve the situation in higher ed. All right. So this is me, and this is my daughter, Susan Indiana Cummings. And this picture is a couple years old, probably. She is 8 years old, probably in this picture. She's 10 now. And as you can see on this slide, I'm here really because I want the world to be better for her. So I don't want her to have to fight quite so hard as I've had to fight, as hard as the women around me have had to fight, just to have a seat at the table, a seat that we absolutely all deserve. So she is a great inspiration to me. I want to share a little bit about some of the research and specifically what I've been working on in the program at Creighton. This is really interesting stuff to me, so we'll spend a little bit of time on this slide. So I did have an opportunity in a previous assignment to spend some time with women working in higher education leadership positions. So this was specific to Indiana, and these are women in cabinet level positions. And what I really wanted to understand as thoroughly as I possibly could was their lived experiences. And what I mean by that is I wanted to understand not just about what their day was like between the four walls of their office or on their college campus or their university campus, but understanding what does it mean to be you? Tell me about a day in your life as a woman who holds this really high pressure position in a college or university in Indiana that is time consuming and difficult on the best of days. I want to understand your whole life and your lived experience. So 4 key themes emerged as I kind of got through that and got a chance to spend time with these women and interviewing them. And I just wanted to kind of run through those themes. And I suspect that for many of you on the call, it will resonate with you and you might think to yourself, hey, I've seen that or I've experienced it myself. Theme 1, family and career decisions. This one was really interesting right out of the gate. So in response to questions about, hey, tell me about your career, tell me about how you've made decisions about how to kind of navigate your career, women tend to consider the needs of their family members, so including their spouse and their children, in making any decisions about their career. So these are things like delaying a promotion. These are situations where a woman might say, well, I kind of felt like I was done with that job. I was kind of ready to move on and do something else, but my family wasn't ready. I didn't want to yank my kids out of school, or, the situation with my husband's job really wasn't perfect. I didn't feel the timing, was right. So over and over again, women sort of putting the needs of their family, particularly, their children and their spouse, ahead of their own desires professionally. So I saw that coming up over and over again. Theme 2, family scheduling. I know many of you can probably relate to this. So most women interviewed did take the responsibility of managing sort of that family calendar, if you will. So this things like waking children up in the morning, getting them breakfast, taking them to school, taxiing them around after school, dinner, cleaning up after dinner, homework, bedtime, all those things. So over and over again, when I asked women about, hey, tell me about, an average Tuesday, tell me what your life is like. These are some of the things that they were talking about. Theme 3, work ethic. These women work hard, really, really hard. And that came up over and over again as well. So when they were describing, again, sort of a day in their life, a day at work, they were talking about starting with email, ending with email after the kids, went to bed. And this is on top of all of their work to keep their households running as well. And then theme 4, I love this one because I've worked in higher ed my whole career, and I do feel that we attract really, really great people. And the participants definitely reported strong connections to other women in the workplace. So this was in response to questions about maybe a tough day at work or a tough time. What was an obstacle that you had to experience? How did you get through that? And how did you sort of fortify yourself to kind of keep going? So over and over again, these women were talking about the relationships that they have with their coworkers and with the other women around them that supported them to help them to keep going, which of course I love to hear. It definitely warmed my heart because I've had the same experience in my 20 years working in higher ed. So a couple of things that I want to just pull out of here and sort of give to you as vocabulary words, if you will. So you could jot these down and look them up at another point in time if you have an opportunity. So second shift and double burden, those can kind of be used interchangeably. And what this refers to is the phenomenon experienced by late 20th century employed women that involves coming home from a day job, to then do all of the work at home as well. So there's been some work done on this topic. There's a lot out there to read. It's fascinating. And again, I think it's something you might be able to relate to. And also that mental load. The mental load, and this is there's been a lot of sort of talk about this one in sort of more pop culture, but there has been some really interesting work done about the mental load as well. And so I would describe this as just a never-ending to-do list. Just absolutely will not end, like laundry. It's like you get to the end of the laundry basket, there's more to do. The same is true with the mental load. So frequently women are the ones who are carrying that mental load in their household. So remembering, hey, we're almost out of laundry detergent, or remembering, hey, our niece's birthday is coming up. I got to make sure that I get a card and get it, to the post office. Things like that that keep the household running, keep the family running in many instances. Frequently women are carrying that mental load. So you can jot that one down and look into it as well. So I would suggest that we do have a problem within the United States higher education sector. Only 30% of leadership positions are held by women. And what I have found to be interesting as I've gotten into the research is that it's lagging pretty much everywhere else in the world as well. And you can see here this image of the glass ceiling. Many of you are probably familiar with that. The glass ceiling, which refers to the sort of inability for women to sort of break through that upper echelon into the top leadership positions. What's really interesting about that is it really debunks the pipeline theory, which is a theory that sort of has suggested that, hey, if we just sort of cram enough young women into the pipeline, sort of as undergraduates, they'll sort of work their way through that pipeline. And eventually, they're going to end up matriculating into these leadership positions. And actually what we have found is that that is not borne out at all in the data. So the number of women pursuing higher education has actually increased steadily over the last 40 years, outpacing men in both college enrollment and in graduation. Yet the glass ceiling remains a reality. So something is absolutely happening there. So they're not making it all the way to those leadership positions. I've got a chart here from the White House Project report that is really telling. It's a little old, it's from 2009, but I do want to include it because it is sort of so stark. So the gray bar is men, the red bar is women, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see the first set there is college students, so far and away more women. Then you move over to professors, and so our faculty colleagues are implicated here as well. Again, pretty stark there, the difference between men and women. And then another category, my Franklin College colleagues who are on the call tonight, I know are going to relate to this one. This is one that we don't talk often enough about, university board members. So in my role at Franklin College, I work really closely with our board members, our trustees of the college, and we have this issue absolutely here. This is where the power is held. This is where the decisions are made. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody at a college or university in the United States with more power than somebody who holds a seat on the board of trustees. And as you can see here, there's a significant imbalance there. Here's our old friend, the COVID-19 scary little guy. And I do think it's important to just talk about this. I know everybody's sick of talking about COVID-19. I can certainly relate to that, but it's important to note that COVID-19 did exacerbate issues for women. And again, I think we can point to our faculty colleagues here and kind of underscore the experiences that they have had. And there's been some important work done on this topic by Duncanson and by Casper. And what it suggests is actually that the Academy's sort of normalization of a work from home culture has benefited men in many instances while negatively impacting women. Does anybody maybe want to take themselves off mute and make a suggestion as to why that might be the case? Why would it have benefited men and negatively impacted women?
Caretakers?
Bingo. Was that Lena? Hi, Lena.
Hello. Yes, guilty.
Yes, you got it. Yeah, exactly right. So childcare, absolutely. So while men perhaps have been able to work from home relatively unencumbered, many times women, if they have children at home, might have somebody who, is crying for a snack, somebody else who needs to go to the bathroom or diaper change or whatever the case may be. So they are absolutely encumbered. And what's unfortunately happened is that it's led to, particularly on the faculty side, a lack of productivity. And so therefore a stigmatization among their peers. So I think it's important to note the impact that COVID-19 has had. This one really makes me mad. 20%. So women in higher education leadership earn close to 20% less than their male counterparts. I've seen this because I've been doing this work for 20 years. So I can absolutely corroborate that this happens. And what's more is that women of color are even more grossly underrepresented. Just 2% of the top core academic earners are women of color. 2059, that is the year we will close the wage gap at this snail's pace of a current rate of closing the gap. And we have made some strides, but clearly we have a long way to go. And I don't want to wait until 2059. I know most of you don't want to wait until 2059. I definitely don't want my daughter to have to wait until 2059 just to earn the wage that she deserves, the same wage that her male counterparts are able to earn in higher education. This is one of my favorite movies about office work and office environment from the 90s. It's kind of a classic. This is a classic scene from the office party that takes place. You can see Milton there having having his cake. And it's a great image to use when talking about invisible labor or office housework. So it's another vocab word for you there that you can read up on if you're so inclined. So office housework refers to the necessary tasks and activities that benefit the company or the organization, but go unrecognized, are underappreciated, and do not lead to career advancement. So I would ask you to just think about your own place of employment and think about who are the folks who sign on to do those ad hoc committees. Somebody's got to serve on them, right? It's work that has to get done. Who signs up to do that work? Who signs up to plan the office party? Who offers to take minutes in meetings? So if you just sort of reflect on that a little bit, I think probably it'll illustrate itself for you. And the other thing that is sort of even more insidious about this problem is that this is work that's largely done by women in the office, in the workplace. And it takes away from other activities, right? So it is important work that needs to get done. It's not recognized, it's definitely not paid, and it's time that takes away from other activities that they could be doing that might potentially be advancing their career. I don't know if this clip will work. I hope it will. Let's give it a try because it's one of my favorites.
Dana, you have to share your sound.
What I think that means, Dana, is you have to unshare and then go back and select this to share. And there's a little button at the bottom of the screen for you to click share sound.
Oh, goodness. That sounds too complicated.
No, just unshare it.
Okay.
Up at the top, probably.
All I'm seeing is new share.
Up at the top. At least on my screen it is.
I don't see it, Jeff. That's okay. Truly,
Okay.
it's really okay. It's really okay.
You
Yeah.
could share the link to the YouTube for everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's just silliness. It's just him reflecting on what it means to be a boss. And it's very funny. For those of you who are familiar with the show, he lacks self-awareness. So absolutely, it's funny, but also probably reminiscent for many of us about a boss, perhaps that we've had in the past who lacks that self-awareness. So what we can learn from this, sort of when you ask yourself, why does this happen? Why does it happen that somebody like a Michael Scott ends up in a leadership position, ends up as a boss? There's actually some really interesting work that's been done on this topic. And Chamorro Pramuzik did a really interesting TED Talk on this topic. It's from 2020, for those of you who might be interested in looking it up, or maybe some of you are already familiar, but really asking that question, how do incompetent people end up as bosses or in leadership positions? And as it turns out, there's some really interesting psychology that's behind it. So as humans, we're sort of hardwired to be really impressed by confidence. And so it can cause us to make poor decisions. So if somebody blows into an interview and, you know, they're sort of really dazzling with their high level of confidence, it can lead us to be really impressed and end up, you know, hiring somebody who's really not qualified to do that job. So what he encourages us to do is to really think about the difference between confidence and competence. And so to emphasize competence over confidence, which actually, as it turns out, can be kind of hard for humans to do, but we ought to still try. And then on the screen, you can see here 60% versus 100%. This is a really interesting statistic, really important, I think, for all of us to be aware of. Ibrahim has done some interesting work on this. So women, as it turns out, require themselves to meet 100% of the qualifications listed on any kind of a job description. So by and large, women will not apply for a job unless they feel that they meet 100% of the qualifications. Whereas men, 60% is close enough. They'll throw their hat in the ring, you know, if they meet 60% of the qualifications. So what we can do absolutely here is to tap somebody on the shoulder. So if you feel that somebody should be throwing his or her hat in the ring, say so. Absolutely tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, you should definitely go for that. You should throw your hat in the ring for that position. So this is a new one. This phrase, we already talked about the glass ceiling, but now we have to contend with the glass cliff as well. So this is a really sort of a new concept. And there's only been a little bit of work done around this theme, but you can see our friend there sort of precariously perched on the edge of the cliff there. And what this is in reference to is really when an organization or an institution or a company might be on the verge of failing. There's a phenomenon that takes place where women come in as a president or a CEO or an executive director, and the organization really was already sort of circling the drain. It ends up failing. It reflects poorly on her leadership abilities. And it's a phenomenon that has sort of been taking place over and over again in recent years. And there's some really interesting examples of that, both in the business world and the nonprofit sector as well, that you can read about. So it's something for us to definitely watch out for, and really make sure you're asking the right types of questions before accepting a position. This is an important concept I think everybody should be aware of. The author's name is Scott Page. He wrote a book called The Diversity Bonus. The idea with the diversity bonus, we've read it in our EDD program, is that what we're looking for with the diversity bonus is a lack of overlap in repertoires of group members. So the idea is you don't want a group where everybody has the same background, everybody has the same skill set, everybody has the same opinions. So you want a lack of that overlap, as a matter of fact, because the more diversity there is in a group, the stronger the group becomes, the stronger the organization can become as well. So he said it's that yields the biggest benefits for teams and creates those diversity bonuses. It's a really fascinating book. And I would also suggest that he is asserting that diversity is not something that we need to pay attention to just because it's sort of the right thing to do, but it makes us all better. It makes our organizations stronger and our institutions stronger as well. I have to talk a little bit about leadership. My program is, my EDD program is all around leadership, of course. So I couldn't get out of here without talking a little bit about leadership theory. And I just want to point to three here tonight, just to give a little bit of a flavor for what it's like to sort of think about leadership theory. So trait theory is an interesting one because it was sort of one of the first. So when scholars sort of first started paying attention to leadership and sort of started thinking about, hey, it seems like some people are better at this than others, let's maybe think about studying it and sort of trying to, figure it out. Trait theory kind of emerged. It was also known as the great man theory, which is kind of what it sounds like. So it was really less about creating leaders and more about just being able to sort of identify one when you see him, always a him, of course. And so being able to identify, quote unquote, a great man would allow for being able to improve business, social, political, and military leadership positions. So that's really how it sort of all started. So thankfully, we've come a long way since thinking about it in those terms. But I do want to also talk about directive leadership and then authentic leadership. So directive leadership, there's our little Mickey Mouse, is probably the style that's sort of quintessential or stereotypical, I suppose, when you think about a boss who's, coming in and sort of telling everybody what to do. It's command and control. Typically, directive leaders are confident and decisive, but they're also considered to be controlling and removed. And I have Mickey Mouse there because Walt Disney is sort of a quintessential directive leader. So he was very command and control, and he knew what to do, and he directed everyone. And of course, we can see the results of that. Disney is very successful. So he's one to think about when you're thinking about a directive leader. Compared to authentic leadership, and I really like this one, so I'm featuring it here. This will play a role in my dissertation, talking about authentic leadership and authentic leadership development as well. It's a newer area of research, so there's sort of less out there on authentic leadership, but it's values-based, it's established, it establishes trusting relationships. Authentic leaders are sensitive and demonstrate empathy, and they bring all of themselves to work. And so of all the styles, this to me captures it, this image. This is me a few years ago, absolutely bringing all of myself to work. This was a work day, and I had all three of my children with me at the office because I had to. I didn't have a choice. The youngest one, I was breastfeeding still. She needed to eat. So my husband brought her to me, and and here we are. I think my husband was trying to get a photo of us, and this is one of those very classic sort of failed family photo attempts. I think at least two of the three of them were crying in this photo, and I absolutely felt like a mess all the time when I had this job. I felt like I was doing a poor job at work. I felt like I was doing a poor job at home. It was just kind of chaos all the time, because I was doing this big job and taking care of all three kids at the same time. A few years after I left this position, I got a letter from one of my former students who let me know that, and she never said anything at the time. And, I sort of thought, oh, my poor students, they probably also think I'm a mess. But she let me know that watching me try to do all of it, to be a mom and run this organization at Indiana University, was one of the ways she felt like she had learned the most in her 4 years at Indiana University, just as much as she learned in her classes. And so for me, it was a great lesson in being authentic and not feeling badly about bringing my whole self to work. So that brings us to our call to action. And I had planned on doing some breakout rooms. Let me see if I can. It doesn't look like I have that functionality, do I? That's okay. That's okay. I don't think I have.
I can do that to you very quick.
Okay, great.
So I'm gonna make you the host then. You have it now,
Oh, okay, I do.
don't you?
Yep, I think I do. Okay, so I'm gonna break everybody up here into breakout rooms. And so what I'm hoping that you'll be able to do is just spend about 10 minutes talking with the folks in your breakout room, maybe just reflect a little bit on what we've talked about, and specifically think about and discuss what you might be able to do in your own life, in your own workplace, that you might be able to improve things for creating more equity within the workplace. That's sort of the idea. And then we'll come back together and just kind of regroup and wind everything up. So let me see here if I can get this figured out.
Dana, did you see the request from your Franklin colleagues?
Nope.
They won't put it in their own room.
Breakout room. Oh. Awesome. That sounds good. I think they're all together.
They're gonna just talk about you, I'm sure.
That's all right.
Like you've never been.
Hi.
Oh. Hello, hello.
Should I just turn the
Hey.
video off? Hey!
Who all do you have?
Where are we? Oh, you're talking about. We're having a watch party. We brought wine.
I love it. I wish I was with you guys.
We had a question about incompetent leaders. Can you tell us more?
Oh, I hope I'm not offending anybody. You all get it. You all get it.
Oh, we're cheering for you.
Yes,
Jeez. Yeah.
Well, I super appreciate you guys joining.
Well, we're enjoying your presentation.
Well, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, we will reconvene in about 10 minutes and see what people have to say. But no, I don't know. I couldn't see anybody.
We'll discuss and we'll be back with you.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome back.
So sorry, Jeff, you were speaking and our breakout room ended.
Jeff, you're on mute.
Many have tried. I helped them. What I was saying to the group when you pulled us back, and I had typed it in the chat also to our small group. What about the queen bees? Because I've seen some literature on that, and some of the students I've worked with have brought that up from time to time in classes, and women supporting women was one of the stronger themes in our conversation in our small group. And then there's the flip side that tends to show up, and you see this with men too. We'll call it more of a who can be tougher than the other one. But those dynamics clearly exist. And in your look at where you are right now in your literature review and all that, anything about queen bees and all of this?
I will look for that. I will absolutely make a point to look for that. I haven't come across it yet, but I will check that out. Yeah.
And the question, the other question that goes with that is, you've experienced that behavior, I am certain.
I was going to say, I'll state my age, but back in the day when I was doing my master's in nursing administration and my developing the executive leadership track, there was a lot of queen bee literature in the 70s and 80s. So I think in my generation, we had a lot of women that mimicked what they thought were male characteristics. And so that's what you'll see in that queen bee. But I'm so, my heart really is following all these years of the literature. I really love the way that it's kind of bending toward coaching, mentoring, being vulnerable. I think it was Caroline, being authentic. I mean, I really love that. But at the same time, women supporting women and pulling them forward and really helping them achieve the opportunities that they should. I think I really look forward to seeing what happens in the next 10 to 20 years, especially by 2059, Dana. I hope we don't wait till that long, but there was a day back in the 1970s that we thought we were going to achieve it a lot sooner, and we have not. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That I have come across that in the literature as well. We still have a lot of work to do. I mean, Dr. Gutierrez said when we opened up that, we have come a long way for sure. I mean, we've made some important.
And just to cite, in my PhD program back in, which isn't too long ago, it was in the 2000s, but I took a sociology in women course, and I saved those books from that course. And they weren't books, they were the faculty who created their own writings. And actually, there was a period in women's, in the history of women in the 1880s to 1920s, that's supposed to be one of the prevailing eras of women leadership. And then it just took a big dump and continues to do so. So I saved those books. I'll have to give them to Candace. I think I'm going to empty out my office. Maybe I'll bequeath those to Candace.
She can, maybe she can share with me. That'd be great.
But I was just so surprised to see that era it's when women created the health systems, women created the sanitizing systems. A lot of the major efforts in the world, in the country, were created by women. So
well,
anyway,
Cokie Roberts wrote a book about the first ladies, and I heard an interview with her that was done not long before she died, and it was fascinating. And those stories are coming out, particularly from around the world wars, where there were so many things going on that women were critical in, yet never received any acknowledgement,
recognition,
let alone recognition. That's the other question I want to just put out here, Dana. Roles of what I think they're calling in the literature sponsors, as well as supporters / cheerleaders.
Yep.
Which means those of us with the mixed chromosomes have a role in this as well.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that I love what I've been reading about. Yeah, sponsorship as opposed to mentorship, and kind of the nuanced differences there, and that it's important to have both surrounding you professionally. So yeah, those are all good points. I know that the Franklin College gals were solving all the world's problems. Is there anything that you want to share, Hannah, Katie, Emily, or Sarah? It's okay if not, but. Anyone else?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just going to share that they thought you were absolutely wonderful to work with, Dana, just so you know. Yeah.
Oh, Well, that's very nice. That's very nice.
Dana,
One of the
we
things that-
love that you brought up the second shift. That was one thing we were talking about. This
Oh,
is
good.
Sarah, I'm reading Fair Play right now by Eve Rodsky and reading
Nice.
like a lot about some of that work. And so it was cool to hear you mention that and really emphasize just how much mental labor women do have. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Good. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
I
Well,
just
I
want to
don't-
share may I?
I'm sorry.
Something very quick. Like I was thinking. I mean, you mentioned about like diversity bonus and everything, which I'm all for that. But at the same time, when I think about this with your topic and everything, and seeing diversity, coming men and women from different countries and bringing their own, baggage and their own culture, and many of the immigrants that come to this country come from a high power distance, especially the men, this high power distance, so that can slow down. I mean, that kind of a phenomenon also can slow down the process that you were talking about, so I mean, that is an important question, an important factor to consider. I mean, all these men or even women coming from other countries, but with a mindset that still that still can slow down again, high power distance and many of those cultural dimensions that is that important to consider. So I don't know if you've been considering diversity in your research.
Yeah. So early on in my literature review, I did read a number of scholarly articles, sort of on adjacent topics. But I need to do a lot more reading probably in that. Yeah. In that.
Especially
area.
because immigration is growing and everything, it has.
Yeah. No, those are really, really good points. Anybody else? I don't want to keep us. I think we're until 9. We just got a few minutes left. If there's anything else that anyone wants to share from your conversations or a thought that you have, words of wisdom, I'm sure we would all be open to hearing them.
Dana, as you may recall, I have a large collection of bookmarked articles on a variety of topics. One of them is gender. I will text you the link, and if anybody wants it, they can either contact you or contact me, but I'll share that link with you because there's a lot of stuff there.
I really appreciate that. That's great. So Jeff did, for my Franklin College friends, Jeff did a talk recently for LJC, Leadership Johnson County, which was really well received. I could only be there for a portion of it, but it was really interesting stuff on a lot of leadership related topics. So he is a great resource, a font of information on the topic of leadership for sure, and always really willing to share and help. So I'll be sure to pass that along to folks in my community.
I'm going to be humble and say thank you, Dana. Other than cha-ching, I guess I got to send you 2 checks
That's
now.
right. That's right. I am keeping track of how much you owe me. That's for sure.
Lunch soon.
I don't know. Nathan's on here. I just wanted to call out Nathan because I think he's still on here, but I don't know if he's listening. But Nathan is doing a really cool dissertation.
I'm here.
Okay, I don't know, Nathan, if you maybe just want to, and not that your topic is similar to mine necessarily, but you are touching on, I think, some really important topics related to equity in your dissertation. So I don't know if maybe you could just give a little synopsis.
Yeah. So I'm going to be researching how systems impact people, or rather, how people. Let's see how to describe it. How the people side of a government system. Sorry, I'm sitting with children. And
yeah,
so
the second shift.
At driver's license restoration. And so we know how people are impacted by losing a license. We know why they lose licenses, but the literature doesn't really speak to the experience that leads to someone, continuing to not have a license. And there's I think a lot of factors that go into that. And so I plan on developing those factors and perhaps a model through talking with practitioners, and then doing I've shifted my research a little bit. It's going to be a qualitative interviews, kind of a case study method with those who've actually experienced suspension, discussing kind of the model that comes out of the practitioner interviews. So I'm excited about it, and Dr. Bloomquist, who I think is still on, is my chair, and she's been, wonderfully helpful, and we're still developing it. So, but thanks,
Awesome.
thanks, and great.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. I just thought some of my friends would enjoy hearing about what you're working on. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that a lot. Well, everyone, it is 8:59, and so I would just leave you with my thanks. I do have up. Hopefully, can you see that slide still? Can you see? Okay, so that's my that's my contact information, and I would really welcome contact. I would really welcome feedback, conversation. I am extremely passionate about this topic, and really working very, very hard in my home state here in Indiana to kind of understand what all of the issues are and kind of unpack those by through my dissertation. And then, of course, as I said, I have a really unique vantage point because I see it at work all day, every day too. So this is important to me. I intend to continue working on this issue and would love to just continue the conversation with all of you. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to drop me a line, dcummings@franklincollege.edu, and we can stay in touch. I do also have all of the references. So any claim that I made or any data that I shared, I do have all the references for that. If anybody's interested in reading more about it, I'd be happy to share at any point in time. So it is 9:01. So I should let you go. At least it's 9:01 here in Indiana. I know it's not 9:01 in Omaha, but.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dana. We appreciate taking your time and sharing this, exciting topic and your passion for this and everything. And I want to invite you for the next, JayTalk is on June 6th, and Vivian, Emu is talking about the role of stories and storytelling and leadership. So it should be also very good. So we will be sending you all an invitation. But thank you again, Dana. And thank you everybody for taking the time to come together. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.